Why I think Zelda 1 sucks. First off, I feel I should preface this review, rant, whatever, with a little warning. A large percent of you probably clicked on the link ready to bash me about how wrong I am, no matter how good my points may be. In that case, I'd appreciate it if your insults were more varied and interesting than fag or moron. Just saying. Anyway, if you follow my channel, you're probably familiar with my opinion of the Zelda series. If you don't, well, here's a quick recap. I'm not a fan. I didn't really grow up with any Zelda games, so I have no connection to the series in any way. So, going back to it at an older age, I see a lot more flaws in the games than people who grew up with the series and hold it dear to their heart do, and I can understand that. Hell, I'm sure that people with no emotional attachment to, say, Paper Mario could tear that game into tiny shreds. I mean, I'd be upset that they're ripping on a game that shaped my childhood, but I'd probably be able to admit it when good points are brought up. That's one of my major complaints with the Zelda fan base as a whole. A lot of Zelda fans absolutely refuse to admit that the games aren't perfect, and that tends to irritate me a lot. Now, that's not to say that the Zelda series is terrible. No, it's not terrible at all. It's just not something that I particularly enjoy myself. I'm not a fan of Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, and A Link to the Past, but I can at least see why people enjoy those titles. I don't see where the best games ever thing comes from, especially for Ocarina of Time, but I can at least say with some certainty that those are all good games, even if I personally don't like them. Zelda 1 doesn't get that luxury from me. No, Zelda 1 is a piece of shit, and I refuse to admit that it's anything other than a piece of shit. Sure, it's an important piece of shit, one that made a positive impact on the gaming industry as a whole, but that doesn't change the fact that Zelda 1 sucks balls. At least in today's world. I'll explain. I can somewhat understand the appeal of Zelda 1 way back in 1986 when the game first came out. Up to that point, most games were very simple. Go from point A to point B. Kill all the bad guys on the screen. Eat all the power pellets. Nothing too taxing on the noggin, and very few games had a sense of scale back then. Zelda 1 was one of the first games to throw you into a game where I'll tell you a vague objective and just let you do whatever you want. But just for doing something completely different for the time, I can see the early appeal of Zelda 1. But today, where sandbox games are almost too prevalent, you can just see how primitive Zelda 1 really is. It has aged terribly, and before you start telling me how wrong I am, do me a little favor. Go play A Link to the Past for a little bit. It doesn't have to be long, maybe 10 minutes. Then go back and play Zelda 1. Yeah. You feel how stiff the control feels in comparison? Tell me now that you think the original has aged well. The main problem is movement. It just feels so stiff to try to move around in Zelda 1. I mean, really, they couldn't have at least programmed the ability to move diagonally? Seriously? I can shoot my boomerang in 8 directions, why can I only move in 4? Hell, 1942 allowed for diagonal movement in an overhead view, and that game came out 3 months before Zelda did. The stiff movement makes hitting enemies with the sword a lot harder than it really needs to be. If you don't have the sword beam you get with a full life bar, then you're going to take a lot of hits just trying to get close enough to the enemies to hit them. And if you die, you always start at 3 hearts, meaning that later in the game you're going to need to either A, grind for hearts, or B, go out of your way to find a fairy fountain if you want to stand a chance against all the shit that wants you dead. That brings up another point. Where the hell am I supposed to go? Yes, I know that I need to find and beat the 8 dungeons, but where the hell are they? Couldn't they have marked them in the map up there in the top corner? I mean, it's pretty useless otherwise, except for giving you a very, very vague idea of where you are, although that's not useful unless if you memorize the geography of the entire fucking game. There's just so much stuff in this game that is cryptic and unfair. For example, you can get a candle that allows you to burn some bushes down. Okay, fine, that's cool. However, you can only burn specific bushes down, and these bushes look exactly the same as every other bush, so there's no way to tell which ones you can or cannot burn. If this were any other Zelda game, the bushes would at least be colored slightly differently, letting you know that there's something you can do with them. Same thing with bombs, too. Sometimes there are secret passages in the walls that you can expose with bombs, but of course there's no way to tell where you're supposed to place the bombs in the first place, and you essentially need a guide if you want to find them. Scratch that, you're gonna need a guide if you want to even finish this game without pulling your hair out. An honest question to everyone watching. Did you beat Zelda 1 all by yourself? No help at all? Without looking up a guide or going on game facts? Without asking a friend who knew all the secrets, probably because they looked up a guide themselves? because I highly, highly doubt that. And even if you did beat it on your own, which I doubt, how long did that take? Hours? Days? Weeks? Months? Maybe even years? And at that point, can you honestly still say that you are having fun? That's where my problems with the common defenses for this game show up. Saying that you're supposed to figure it out on your own is honestly bullshit, because at least half of the people who say that couldn't have figured all of this out on their own. Master using it and you can have this. What does that even mean? If it said, get 6 hearts and I'll give you this sword, that would make sense and you could figure out how to do that on your own. Hell, you can't even say that character limits was a problem then, because it's got about the same amount of letters. But master it and you can have this? Master using what? The white sword? How can I master something that I don't have? This game is full of this kind of bullshit. Did you really figure out all of this on your own? All by yourself? Another common defense usually goes like this. This game came out in 1986. Can you really hold it up to the same standards that we hold modern games up to? The answer is yes. The answer is hell yes. The answer is, of course it can, you fucking moron! Plenty of games made before and during the NES era still hold up perfectly fine today. Super Mario Bros., Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, Galaga, Mega Man, Tetris, Contra, you get the idea! Yes, it came out on the NES, but that's no excuse for it sucking. And even if it was a viable excuse, and it's not, just so we're clear, there's no reason to keep calling it the best game ever then if you're using an excuse to keep it up on that pedestal. Just because something might have been good back then doesn't mean it's good now. In case you haven't noticed, we stopped riding horses once cars were invented. We stopped using typewriters once computers became a common occurrence. And we should stop saying that Zelda 1 is a good game now that many, 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 many games have exceeded it. That's all.